What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? Now, what happens when they've been waiting 8,000 years for the rematch? In the world of Bleach, two titans stand above all others. One, a god of order, who forged an empire with a blade as hot as the sun. The other, a god of chaos, who can see every possible future and choose the one where he wins. This isn't just a fight. This is a war across a millennium. A clash of ideals that will burn an entire world to the ground. Today, we break down the ultimate grudge match, Genryusai Yamamoto versus Yuha Bach. To understand this legendary conflict, you have to understand the men behind the power, and we have to start with the OG, the founder, the man whose beard has more history than most countries, Captain Commander Genryusai Shigekune Yamamoto. Now, when we meet him, he's the quintessential wise old master, stern, strict, and obsessed with rule. He's the guy who would give you detention for having your shirt untucked while the world is ending. But here's the twist. 8,000 years ago, this respectable headmaster was an absolute monster. The original Gotei 13 wasn't a team of noble protectors. They were a squad of ruthless, barbaric killers. And Yamamoto was their leader. Yuha Bach himself calls him a demon, a cold-hearted killer who brought peace not with justice, but with overwhelming, brutal force. This is the guy who looked at the most diabolical criminal in Soul Society history, Kenpachi Unohana, and said, "You're hired." So what happened? He won after crushing his enemies. Yamamoto spent the next 1,000 years building the very system he now fanatically protects. He founded the Shinigami Academy, personally mentoring future legends like Shunshui and Ukitake, whom he loved like his sons. He transformed his gang of killers into the Gotei 13, He transformed his gang of killers into the Gotei 13 we know today. You could say he's strict. Authoritarian nature is a cage he built for himself to make sure the monster he once was would never be needed again. But this transformation created his greatest weakness, pride. A millennium of being the strongest Soul Reaper alive made him arrogant. When his arm was destroyed, he flat out refused help from Orihime, a decision Yuha Bach himself would later call a fatal mistake. He became predictable, and beneath that stoic exterior was a volcano of rage, just waiting for a reason to erupt. Of course, you can't talk about Yamamoto without talking about his Zanpakuto, Ryujin Jaka. And folks, this isn't just a fire sword, it's a portable apocalypse. First form Shikai, released with the command all things in the universe turn to ashes. It unleashes an inferno so massive its spiritual pressure can be felt for miles. He can create inescapable prisons of fire or summon pillars of flame from the ground in a technique so dangerous it could kill even himself. But that's just the appetizer. The main course is his Bankai, Zanka no Tachi. And this is where it gets terrifying. All those world-ending flames don't disappear. They get compressed into the blade's edge. The passive heat coming off of his body reaches 15 million degrees. That's literally as hot as the core of the sun. Just activating it starts evaporating all the moisture in the entire Soul Society. If he leaves it on for too long, the world itself is just on. His Bankai has 4 techniques named for the cardinal directions. East erases anything the blade touches from existence. No cut spaces. West cloaks him in an invisible aura of 15 million degrees heat. Get too close and you just stop existing. North is a single concentrated slash that obliterates anything in its path into nothingness. And then there's South, my personal favorite. Yamamoto uses the heat of his blade to reanimate the ashes of everyone he's ever killed, creating a literal army of fiery skeletons to fight for him. holding a grudge. So, you have a reformed monster with the power of the sun, whose pride and rage are his biggest flaws. Now let's meet the man who designed a plan to exploit every single one of them. Yuha Bak, the father of all Quincy's, is one of the most unique villains in anime because his evil is born from a twisted, unbearable form of empathy. He was born a helpless infant. He couldn't see, hear, speak, or even move. He only survived because he had a miraculous power. Anyone who touched him was healed. But in return, he imparted a piece of his soul into them. When those people died, their soul fragments returned to him, bringing with them all their knowledge, skills, and all of their pain, fear, and suffering at the moment of death. Imagine that your entire life, your very existence is filled by the dying screams of everyone you've ever helped. It's no wonder he's a little messed up. His ultimate goal is to merge all the worlds, the world of the living, Soul Society, Muchos Mundo, back into one, creating a reality where the concept of death itself doesn't exist. It's not about power, it's about ending his own eternal suffering by destroying the system that causes it. He's willing to sacrifice his own followers, treating them like crops to the harvested, because their individual lives mean nothing compared to the final peace that will silence the agony in his own soul. And the power he uses to achieve this is frankly broken. It's his script. And the power he uses to achieve this is frankly broken. It's his script, the Almighty. Before he absorbs the Soul King, the Almighty is basically omnipotent. He can see all possible futures like countless grains of sand. By simply seeing an opponent's power, he understands it completely and it becomes useless against him. But after he absorbs his father, the Soul King, the power evolves from seeing the future to writing it. He can look at all those grains of sand, pick the one he likes the best and make it reality. This is how he instantly shattered Ichigo's Bankai. He didn't break it in the present. He chose a future where it was already broken and pulled that future into the now. He can even rewrite his own death. So how do you beat a guy who can just choose a future where he wins? Well, his greatest power is tied to his greatest weakness, his God complex. He is so arrogant, so utterly convinced his own supremacy that he is blind to any possibility that doesn't fit his worldview. He sees a vision of his own defeat and dismisses it as a mere dream. He's so busy authoring the future, he forgets to read the footnotes. 1,000 years ago, these two titans clashed for the first time. It was a brutal, bloody war. The monster Yamamoto, leaded his squad of killers, overwhelmed a younger Yuha Bak through sheer, unadulterated force. But Yamamoto failed to kill him completely. Why? The manga is vague. But a popular theory is that a defeated Yuha Bak may have regressed to a helpless, childlike state. And even the ruthless Yamamoto couldn't bring himself to strike the final blow. This single act of mercy or hesitation changed everything. Yamamoto mellowed, turning to order and law. Yuha Bak, on the other hand, spent 1,000 years stewing, recovering, and planning the perfect revenge. He learned his lesson. You don't fight a volcano head on. You make it erupt on its own. Yuha Bak's second invasion is a masterclass in psychological warfare. Step 1. Debate. He has one of his stern ridders murder Yamamoto's oldest friend and lieutenant, Chojiro Sasakibe, and then use Sasakibe's stolen Bankai to taunt the old man. The emotional trigger is pulled. Second, step 2, the Decoy. Blinded by grief and rage, Yamamoto abandons his post as commander and charges headfirst into battle. But he's not fighting Yuha Bak. He's fighting a body double, a stern ritter named Royd Lloyd, who has perfectly copied Yuha Bak's appearance and memories. Step 3. The trap. Yamamoto, believing he's fighting his true nemesis, doesn't hold back. He unleashes the full devastating power of his Bankai, Zanka no Tachi. He goes through east, west, and even summons his army of dead with south. Prolong the fight to psychologically torture the man he thinks killed his friend. He wastes incredible amounts of energy on a fake. Step 4. The execution. Only after Yamamoto is emotionally spent and physically exhausted does the real Yuha Bak arrive. He calmly reveals the deception, and as the shocked and drained commander tries to use his Bankai one last time, Yuha Bak does the one thing Yamamoto boasted was impossible. He steals it. Powerless, broken, and utterly defeated. His mind before his body, Yamamoto is cut down with ease. Yuha Bak never fought Yamamoto. He fought Yamamoto's grief. He fought Yamamoto's pride. And he won before he even drew a punch. The death of Yamamoto wasn't just the fall of a character, it was the symbolic death of an entire era. Yamamoto represented history, tradition, and the rigid, unchanged order of the Soul Society. Yuha Bak represented a terrifying absolute future that has no respect for the past. Yamamoto's fall proved that the old ways, no matter how powerful, were too brittle to survive a new kind of war. It shattered the Gotei 13's illusion of invincibility and forced a new generation to adapt and evolve, or be erased completely. So, in the end, who was truly stronger? Yamamoto possessed the raw, destructive power to potentially incinerate Yuha Bak, a power so great that Yuha Bak went to extraordinary lengths to avoid facing it directly. But the war was won on the battlefield of the mind. Yamamoto fought with the tools of the past, overwhelming force and righteous fury. Yuha Bak fought with the tools of the future, perfect information, psychological manipulation, and a complete disregard for the rules. Yuha Bak's victory wasn't the triumph of a stronger fighter, but the triumph of a more ruthless and adaptable philosophy. He proved that the most dangerous enemy isn't the one you can't overpower, but the one you can't predict. But what do you guys think? If it came down to a straight fight with no tricks, could Yamamoto's sun-scorching Bankai have burned through Yuha Bak's control over fate? Let me know your theories in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next breakdown. Thanks for watching. We'll see y'all in another one. SeemlyTuber out. Peace.